Hi, everyone. I'm back for another day. I got 2 days left, basically. I have to vacate this office on Friday. Today is Wednesday. There's a lot to do. I might be pulling an all-nighter or a very late-nighter today, but let me show you what I've done. First of all, an overview of my pages, and it's starting to look like a book, which is really fun. Now, I gotta say, I am a bit underwhelmed with Adobe Express and its capabilities. Like, this is supposed to be Adobe's answer to Canva, and I am using Canva for a client on their account. And of course, it's hard for me to justify paying for Canva when I have the full Adobe Creative Cloud, which I need for all kinds of other things. So I am using Express, but it's really not up to par. For example, first of all, it's really hard to select items once they're big. Even with the layer system is really wonky. Everything is pretty much inferior in terms of both in terms of usability, like user experience, user interface, and flexibility and options and functionalities. I just have to say, and with Adobe having all of these other functionalities in the other software, I don't understand why this is not as good, but that's just an aside. So, like, moving things around has been quite a frustration, and that is very true for the first page that I spent. Not first, I did quickly the second line, and that was relatively easy to do. Although, here, let me show you an example here. For example, you see, I couldn't crop, like, this is an icon that I got from their library, and there's just no way for me to crop this. I wanted to show two glasses because we're in wine number 2, and I ended up having to create this white rectangle to cover up on the bottle because I don't want two bottles. Very simple, very frustrating that you don't have this kind of basic functionality. But this is a nice, like, reprieve in the middle of the Magid for cup number 2. Now, this is really what took me the longest to figure out. Now, this comes here in the place of the 4 sons, which at first, I already talked about this before, where I wanted to cater it completely to the kids that I'm gonna have at the Seder. And a little side note, you see the Hebrew here, like, they are the ones that can read. My kids are not at reading age yet, so the kids that can read are actually all Hebrew speakers, so I had to really focus on the Hebrew here. But I wanted everyone to have both options, because what I landed on about this question thing, instead of the 4 questions and the 4 ways to educate, is a huge variety of questions that to encourage people to look at and to read. Now, looking at this now, I feel like I have too many, probably, and there's probably some overlap. I use GPT here a little bit to help guide me, but I was just not satisfied. I wanted real hard-hitting questions and that grown-ups can also ask. So what I'm gonna do is this. We have this grid over here, and the theme is here is pick a question. Everyone around the room can go around and pick a question or just make up their own. But these are hard-hitting questions about why we do this, to invoke a real discussion. What if I don't believe in God? What if I don't believe in this story? So this is all like one category about, like, belief. Any of this is real. If it's a myth, why do we treat it like history? That kind of stuff. Then this is about having to be here. Why do we have to do this? Why can't I go back to my cell phone? Some resistance. Does this feel fake to you also? Then we have, what does this have to do with me? Why should we care about something that happens thousands of years ago? So, like, hard-hitting questions. And I spent a long time theologizing with GPT, and this is the only page where I have a page of answers also, which are just my answers. Like, I don't necessarily have to answer. I want this to be a discussion, but I wanted to have my own answers to some of these questions in case people call me to task. Now, do I believe this format is great? No. This is a work in progress. I just don't have time to refine it. And after this Passover, and maybe I will learn some things by conducting it and take some notes to improve this. I know this is not great. Maybe I'll go back and simplify it back to less questions if I have time. But this took a really long time to come up with, and I didn't end up in a satisfactory place. And it also took a really long time to lay it out with the grid function here in Adobe Express, which was frustrating. I would like to share with you a little bit what it looked like, this conversation about the questions that I've had with ChatGPT. Because when I asked for it to come up with its own, even based on our previous discussions, came short, I think. So the 4 questions: I want to understand, I'm not sure I care, wait, what's going on, I'm just here for the food, like, it's just it just didn't hit the depth at all. And then I said, all right, separate it between the teens and the kids, because the kids that can't read, like, I want them to participate also. So the teens, why do we have to do this? Why, if I don't believe any of this, can I go back to my phone? What does this have to do with me? Did this even really happen? Why should we care about something from thousands of years ago? Why do we still need this? For the little ones, why are we doing this again? Can I eat now? What's inside the matzah? So it's a nice attempt, GPT, but it's just to show you that the AIs are not quite there yet. And it was getting a little bit closer. See, I said, now we're getting somewhere, but why no answers on the DM page? Or at least partial if possible, because a lot of these questions don't really have defined answers. And then I came up with this thing, which maybe I'm regretting now. So, and why not have people around the table choose some? Of course, it's encouraging me. It says, yes, now it's cooking. So we landed around the theme of pick a question, but then I started to think, hey, like, maybe the grown-ups want to participate. There should be enough for everyone, etc. And it started to give me the answers. I'm not going to go into this, but and it gave me titles for the page. We decided to name it Pick a Questions. Then I started to get a little bit deeper, and I started to dictate to it what I thought the questions would be. And it was categorizing them for me. So these are pretty much the questions we ended up with here. Category 1, belief and doubt, resistance and discomfort, relevance and meaning, cultural identity and questions, cultural plus identity questions, and then personal and emotional questions. It was 25. Some of them are redundant. And I said it should be around 20 or so. So why don't we just keep them all? But by then, a lot of time had been passing by, and I didn't really have answers. And I was like panicking a little bit. Okay, there's all these questions. I don't have answers. I don't even have time to type this. So I just picked up my phone and started dictating to GPT and talking to it, which is what I do often when I need to brainstorm. I just talk. And I just basically said, you're going into listening mode now. I'm going to answer all of your questions as best as I can. And I was just like spitting out all of my answers, like just a ton of text. And I'm like, all right, catalog these for me and put them aside. And then I knew I wasn't there yet. I knew I wasn't reaching what I wanted. But I also knew that I'm never going to finish. So I said, all right, this is what we're going with for now. I showed it the layouts. This is another tip here. Like, I use that for graphic design all the time. When I have a lot of doubts about my graphic design abilities, like they're getting better now because I've been doing it more professionally for a little bit longer now. But actually, all the AIs are pretty good at giving you feedback on design. So I ran it by it. It says it looks fantastic. Anyway, I think it's overstating it, but it's just a good tip. Two AIs can see JPEGs and PNGs and PDFs. And so for a lot of social media posts and things like that, when I'm not sure about my design, I sketch something out and then I show it. I get some advice sometimes from the AIs. I tweak it, I show it again. I can do 2 to 3 or even up to 5, sometimes back and forth until, if it's a complex design, until I'm happy with it. And that's a really good use case of the. Now, a quick note about the layout here. I actually moved the second cup earlier than was originally planned in my plan, after I came up with this heady piece here, because I figured, hey, it would be nicer to do that with a drink in hand. So that's one thing. And then the next page also, which is the next page in the main Haggadah, was originally supposed to follow in my order. It was supposed to follow the 10 plagues. But again, I felt like after a thing like this, you need a palette cleanser. And anyway, this would be fun. This makes more sense chronologically, right? Because if we're getting into the hocus pocus parts of things, the serpents and the snakes in the story happened earlier. And it took me a little while to generate this image, but I just wanted a very clean, fun coloring page. I named it Staffs and Serpents. And it's neat. It took me some iterations to get it. Oh no, I actually did the 10 plagues before. So we'll talk about the 10 plagues, but I did the 10 plagues before I actually ended up with my coloring book. But I can show you here, actually. I was struggling. The more images you create with GPT, the least good they become, I feel. Like over time, after you do a handful, it starts to give you less good results. And so here was actually pretty useful because I searched online and I found this reference image, which looks like it's from an animated film. But I like the fact that you can see the staff and the snake. I like the angle a little bit. And I told him, hey, use this as a reference. And this is the image that I ended up with. So it's a fun image. And then we got into the 10 plagues. And that took a really long time to design. And that was mostly because of GPT messing up. Because, okay, early on, I decided it's a lot of information to put on a screen, like on a page. I don't want to overdo it. I just want basically an icon. Because there'll be chanting involved, I need not only the Hebrew, but the transliteration. So English speakers can also chant along, but also the meaning, of course. That's very important. So just easy, quick meanings about what these things are. But then for the graphics, because the graphics worked so well with the 4 questions, the icons, I asked GPT to give me some graphics. And it had a hard time. Like, I didn't want any words. And for some reason, it couldn't understand that over a few iterations. Some of these are fine. The frogs are cool, actually, maybe even better than the ones that I ended up with. And so is the locust. But what is this? And the Hebrew, if you see, by the way, it's just all messed up. Like, I don't know what this is supposed to be, but there's a lot of random. There's some good stuff, but there's randomness. Maybe asking it for 10 things at a time might be too much because it actually gave me 12. I just noticed that. I was just actually noticing that it's 12. And I like some ideas. For instance, the darkness, what I ended up with, and I'll tell you how I ended up with, it's just a black square, which is also cool. But actually, I like the sun going behind the clouds. And I tried to get it better, and it just didn't work. And then I thought, hey, actually, these are fairly common icons. And I went on a search in Adobe Express under Elements, Design Assets. They have icons, and they have a pretty good amount. So I was just starting to search for things like grasshoppers. And I think this is the one I ended up with. And I actually found something to correspond with all 10 of them, which are fairly iconic, and I love it. And I decided to add this shot glass thing as a reminder. I also went to Amazon and bought those shot glasses so I don't forget, so we can do the dipping. I love how this came out at the end, but it took a long time to lay this out. I did that in the home office. Otherwise, I would be sharing the screen recording of the design process because it's probably neat to see that as a time lapse. And these are some of the themes. I stopped designing. I don't love how the designs of the DM pages are not great. I might just actually end up doing it in Microsoft Word, but we'll see about this. So for now, I didn't even want to spend too much time on this of some of the ideas. But of course, the ideas are very deep with the 10 plagues. It's something that I've discussed before. There's a lot of, actually, I see here, there's a lot of things that don't align quite well, right? Because especially if you read in the real text, when it says that God is the one who hardened Pharaoh's heart. So like, man, so it's like, of course, if God is omnipotent and he's making those decisions, and then he's punishing the people and the common people being punished for Pharaoh's sins, and the fact that there's something very, I called it D&D before, it's like spells, right? I mean, we're talking about dungeon masters, and like these are all kind of cleric spells. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about here. If it comes up, I think maybe after the other heady conversations, it won't come up. So I just want to be a little bit armed to talk about it if it comes up. But for the most part, it's probably just going to be a fun activity, ritual, number, or something to remember, which is, I think, fine for now. And then I moved, and I love how this page came out. I moved halachmania. This is the bread of affliction to this part over here, because chronologically, okay, that's where the matzah comes in. I love how the design came. This illustration, I was very happy with the prompt that I got. This came out from GPT and it came out really well. So I love it. One thing to note here is there's actually, the original text is in Aramaic, which even our Hebrew speakers don't really understand. Like, we can understand some of the words like lachma and lechem is similar. Anya and oni, you can understand. Mitzrayima, but you don't fully understand it. So I decided we need Hebrew and Aramaic. I put them on both sides. And then, as much as I love the phrasing of the bread of affliction, again, very D&D, very dramatic sounding, I don't think my kids will understand the word affliction. And so I changed it. This is the poor bread. And that actually works better with the original text in a way. So that's one addition that I made here. Some symbolism about the bread. I'm not going to dwell over the Dungeon Master stuff today because, yeah, it's getting long anyway. And then finally, and it took some basic photoshopping to get this image because the people in the background were weird. But here I wanted to just celebrate Miriam Song. Plain and simple. Have the kids maybe tell the story. If I had more time, I would hand out tambourines. We don't have tambourines, but maybe I can encourage them to knock things on the floor. In fact, let me make myself a note here, because if I can come up with a fun song around it, only if I have time, I'm just going to put here, I'm going to add a text here. A rhythmic song to tap along. Find. All right, so just leaving myself a little note here If time allows, I think that would actually be really fun. And my dad doesn't think so. He's already going to be quite disappointed expecting a 15-minute Seder, but that's where we're at. This is it. Let's just go back to an overview quickly. I have pretty much done with the Magid. I have Dayenu coming up today, and then the Ten Commandments, which is going to be just a coloring page, and Gamliel, our finish line. So the Magid is almost done, and that's good. But of course, we still have all these. But again, these are not going to take as much work because they're pretty preordained, I think. We'll see. I'm saying that now. I'm being optimistic. And if I'm wrong, I'll be here all night and you'll get another bleary-eyed video tomorrow, seeing where I'm really at. Whoever's watching along, thank you, and I'll see you next time.